Hello everyone, this is Wrestling Watcher, a YouTube channel that is about watching professional wrestling. So as we all know, Roman Reigns vs. Seth Rollins will happen at Summerslam. Now if you remember, Obafemi was supposed to get the title shot, but he decided to forfeit that in favor of a Hell in a Cell match with Brock Lesnar, which I made a video about citing concerns previously. But Seth vs. Roman, I do think this will be the last time we see this match. I think this is the last time this happens, and I will predict that Roman Reigns will go over. Now, will it main event the show? I think there's a good chance of that. But who knows? It's either going to be last or it's going to be first. Because I do think there's a slight chance that Obafemi and Brock Lesnar could be the main event with this Hell in a Cell. But we'll see. We'll see, right? You know, Seth versus Roman has been... They've arguably, in a lot of ways, have been the two pillars for WWE, you know, since the mid-2010s, 15, 16, right? You know, Roman, they were pushing Roman as a WrestleMania main eventer. Seth was part of the Authority. If you remember, he turned on the Shield famously. Became a member of the Authority, ruined Roman Reigns' first WrestleMania main event. It was 31 by cashing in or winning a championship. And they've played on that story ever since. Now, Roman always calls Seth a number two, his number two, right? He's called Drew McIntyre that before as well. I believe he's also called Cody that. You know, it's one of those things in wrestling where there's always the top guy and then there's the second guy, right? You had Hogan Savage. You had Austin Rock. You can argue, you know, there was parallels in the 80s between Flair and Dusty. You can look at early WCW and make a case for Sting Luger. You know, there's that number one and number two guy. Another classic example would obviously, I think, be John Cena and Randy Orton. Now, obviously, with the way WWE has booked Roman versus how they've booked Seth, you know, Roman would obviously be the Hogan's position, and Seth would obviously be the Randy Savage position. That's always going to be the way it is. It's too late in the game to really change that legacy. I do predict a Roman Reigns win. I think it's a little too soon to end the title reign. You know, I previously predicted a long time ago that Roman would win against Punk at Mania, and he would have a short title reign where he would perhaps lose it at SummerSlam to a Braun Breaker or someone like that. I don't see that happening, though. I see them running a lot more story with this newer bloodline, and really trying to milk a lot more meat off this bone, because there's a lot of meat on this bone. So we'll see what happens there. But I wouldn't be surprised if we got some kind of surprise at the end. Something that sets this WWE up going forward. I don't know if it's a return. I don't know what it is. We'll see. You know, we know on tonight's Raw, we found out we're going to get LA Knight, Royce Keys, and Solo Sikoa against, I believe it is the Usos and Jacob Fatu. 6-man tag. I kind of think that Solo Sikoa might help Roman Reigns win this against Seth Rollins. I kind of see something like that. And I see kind of the bloodline standing tall at the end, where you've got Roman in the middle, you've got the Usos, Jacob, and Solo behind him in this unstoppable bloodline faction that's just completely overpowered. And then you gotta wonder if we're gonna hear music of somebody, like an Obafemi or something, that sets up the fall of WWE. You know, sets them up for September, October, November, going into Survivor Series. Because, you know, if that's the way it ends, because they're sort of playing with this idea of Solo going back to the original bloodline. Even though he screwed them tonight, they've been toying with that idea. If he eventually goes back, you would have Roman, the two Usos, Jacob, and Solo. Obviously, if you're going to run War Games, that would be one team, right? And then you'd have to figure out who the other team would be. Now, it's a weird group because Roman's supposed to be a babyface, but he does heelish things. So I kind of think they're just sort of playing with the idea that Roman's just a tweener. But we'll see what happens. Again, I'm predicting a Roman Reigns win. That's all for this one, guys. Thank you.